Hey everyone, and welcome back to LightHearted, where we explore how to find light even in the darkest moments. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Britton, and today we're going to talk about a topic that's really relevant to all of us, building resilience in our lives. Now, I do want to give a little disclaimer because we're probably going to get into some heavier topics, so we are labeling this episode as heavy-hearted. And so if, you're driving in the car with some little ones, you might want to pre-screen this before you let them listen to it. But it's still going to be really good stuff. So make sure you listen to it and let us know what resonates with you. Life is really hard. We all fall down sometimes, but what matters is how we get back up. And that's what we want to talk about today.
We live in a world that often tells us if something is too hard, we should just give up, walk away, or quit. But today we're here to shout back at that message and remind ourselves and all of you that we can overcome the hard things. Falling down does not mean it's over.
I love every single thing about that. I think it's interesting that we're living in a culture where people get completely destroyed online for making mistakes too. Mm-hmm. Like that's something that's really new. So there's the whole idea of cancel culture where one little mistake is like, it's just written on your forehead forever. Yeah. Like that's just something that's part of you now. But the truth is falling is not final. It's just part of the journey, but it's a hard part of the journey.
Yeah. It's not a question of if we fall. It's a question of when. We're all going to fall at some point, but that doesn't mean we should quit. You can cry, but you can't quit.
I think we've both had moments where we felt like quitting.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
Can you think of any times that you're willing to share that like you just have really felt like quitting?
I have a lot of options to pick from, I feel like, with this category, if I'm being honest. I think I'm going to go a little more recent. We're going to talk about right now. I feel life's been hard. Life is hard, guys. And I've been on this journey of like, I'm trying to become who I want to be in life. And I just feel like I keep failing and I keep messing up and I keep just not getting it right. And I had a conversation with some people a couple weeks ago and I just sat down and I was like, what's the point? Like, why am I trying? Like, it's so hard. And I just, without going into detail on what I'm struggling with, but I just feel like I keep making the wrong decisions and I keep messing up and it just makes you want to give up. Every day is a new day and you can always start over, but it's hard because I'm like, why am I even trying? I should just give up.
Yeah. I'm glad that you don't.
Thanks.
I think Earth is better.
Yeah. Because,
you're here and you're doing good things for people. And yeah, I really like that.
What about you?
Man, I think I feel like when you were talking, I was like, it's so interesting that like we go through so many phases like that where it's like, man, I am just really screwing everything up right now. Yeah. But I think it happens so like not seasonally, but it's just like right now is a tough season. Yeah. And then all of a sudden like something clicks into place and you're figuring it out and you're doing a really good job. Right. And then all of a sudden like something else comes up and like it's a new thing that you have to learn.
Yeah.
And it's okay. This is a heavy-hearted episode and we're both going to cry a lot.
And it's okay.
It's fine. So mine specifically that I can think of is like anytime I'm parenting, like, which is now always, because always, yeah. I have a kid and so I'm always on. But it's like, we always joke that like for 6 months, we feel like we are the best parents on the planet, right? Like we're so good. We're just like gliding. We've got it all figured out. We have a great relationship with our kid. And then like he hits a new age or he hits a new milestone, which like developmentally is supposed to happen. Right. Like he's supposed to fight back a little bit. Like things are supposed to happen. But then I feel like we're in this brand new season of like having to work really hard to figure it out and to feel like we're failing every single day and like to just feel really lost. And it's hard. New seasons are always so hard.
And I feel like you said the 6-month thing. I feel like that goes for everything.
Yes.
Because I feel like, oh, I'm doing good. And it's been like 6 months. I'm like, wow, I'm killing it.
Yeah.
I'm on track. And then I hit another moment of like, okay. And I am not.
Like, what am I doing?
I don't like starting over.
Mm-mm.
Like I really, it's so, I feel so defeated when I have to start all over again.
Yeah. I agree with that feeling
Yeah.
completely. Yeah. Where it's just like, that is defeat and it sucks. Like it hurts. It hurts like my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like other problems kind of hurt my brain a little bit, but like when I feel defeated, it hurts my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Let's talk about some of the things that might keep us from persevering when life gets tough. I think fear is a big one. Fear of failure, fear of embarrassment. It can be really paralyzing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Which I think now is a good time to tease our upcoming fear episode that will happen at some point. We're really excited about it. But fear is something that often makes me just want to sit back and not even try. So it's those thoughts like, what if I fail, or what if I embarrass myself, which is a really big one for me.
Yeah.
But the truth is, like, failure is not the end. And it could be the beginning of something really cool and new and beautiful and wonderful and life-changing if, you know, you're able to keep getting back up.
For sure.
That's the hardest part, I think.
Yeah, for sure. We tend to view failure as final, but it's really a stepping stone. I've seen so many people that have failed at one thing and then gone on to do amazing things.
Is there anyone in your life that you can think of that just like embodies this idea of resilience and like they just keep coming back even when like life is just smacking them down every single chance it gets? Like they just keep coming back.
I think the one person that keeps coming to mind is my mom. She's gone through a lot in her life, and despite all of the hard things and all of the times she had to like start over, essentially, she just keeps going, and it's amazing to watch.
Yeah.
What about you?
I mean, I'm going to validate you for a second because I love all of that. Like I've heard a little bit of your mom's story and I just think like she's incredible, and like what an incredible example to you
Right.
of like it's not the end and it doesn't have to be the end. So I think that's really cool that like she's had that impact on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me it's my dad. Like I feel like he really had to crawl out of a dark hole. Like he was in a really tough place, and I think he put the work in, and like just watching him do that and like watching him fight through some really tough things has been really inspirational for me, and to just show me like he has a great relationship with all of his kids, and it's just watching him go from like such a dark, hard place to like a place where like he is thriving, and you know, like we talk twice a week, and he has a great relationship with his grandson, and he, you know, all of his kids. I just think it's really motivational for me, and it's really inspirational for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love hearing that story and just how he's overcome so much. So, yeah.
Okay, so I think, you know, we both have really good examples of building resilience, which I think, to speak for both of us, I think we're really thankful for that.
Yeah.
Because it's hard if you're starting from nothing and you've never seen that happen before.
Very true.
And so I would love to maybe think of just some tips of like how to build more resilience. And like we've seen it happen. So like what did the people that we love do, and like how can we do similar things in our lives?
I think the first way that I can think of is having a healthy perspective. When you're going through something hard, it helps to zoom out and realize that that's just a moment. That's not the whole picture. That's not the whole life. Yeah.
I think that can be so hard because like that hard moment, like it feels like everything, right? Like we've, I was listening to someone talking about like child psychology, and it was like, don't discount their problems, because like their tiny little stubbed toe is the hardest thing that they're going to deal with that entire day.
Yeah.
Like that is 100% for them. Like that is their whole world for that moment because it hurts. Right. And so I think that can be so hard, is like having perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it is hard.
What kinds of things do you do to like create more perspective?
I think just reminding myself like that this is just a chapter in my life. It's really hard when you're struggling to be like, no, but good can come out of this. But it really can. It's just hard to see that.
I think that's really true. I think kind of to go along with that, one thing that I kind of keep going back to is just like what can I learn from this? Because I think we've talked about before where it's like every person you meet, they're going to be a good lesson or a bad lesson. And everything you experience is going to be a good lesson or a bad lesson. Yeah. Right? Like, and that's just how it is. And so I think if we can kind of, not to like dumb it down to like my experiences mean so little, but it's just like, okay, like is this going to be a good lesson? Is this going to be a tough lesson? Is this going to be like, what can I learn from this? How can I take this information moving forward?
Yeah.
And like,
that's really important.
Do what I can do.
Yeah. Because if we look back on the hard things that we faced, at least for me, I know, you know, we've asked the question in our first episode, like, would you go back and change anything? And I was like hesitant to change anything big because that's what makes us who we are. And that's how we face the next hard thing, is because, but we made it through that.
Yeah. I've also been really shocked by the amount of times like I have had an experience and I figure out like some creative way to get through it or whatever, or a tough way to get through it. And then like years down the road, I'll meet somebody who's going through the exact same experience that I went through. And I have so much more knowledge and I know how to help them. And I know the things to say to them, like, cause there's not always a right answer, but like sometimes you can say things that are actually really helpful, but only because you've been there.
Yeah. I've had that happen.
I think it's interesting too. Cause like I said, like sometimes it's years down the road. Like, so I don't know immediately that like, oh, that was a good lesson that I just learned and it's going to be useful.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. Yeah.
And having a good support system, I think, is huge. We aren't meant to go through life alone. We're meant to have people around us to lift us up when we fall. And that makes the biggest difference. Who do you turn to when you need support?
Yeah. So I talk to my husband all the time. He's my best friend. So I usually turn to my husband first. And then if I need kind of an outside perspective, then I like to go to my best friends. Like they're just like my trusted advisors, like I've called them. And then I also call my dad quite a bit anytime I just need some advice. Yeah. So it feels good though to just like have the people. You just have people, you know, where it's like, important. I have a problem and I can think of 4 people that I could call. Yeah.
And it also helps because you can feel like maybe I'm overreacting or underreacting to this. And it's like to have other people's perspective is super helpful in those moments.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think having trusted people where it's like, you know, they're going to be straight with you.
Yep.
If you're like blowing something way out of proportion, they can call you on it and it's okay. What about you? Who are your go-tos?
My best friend. She's also my sister-in-law.
That's like a double bonus.
It is. I like to say that I put them together, but
meant to be.
I trust her opinion and she will tell me when like, hey, probably shouldn't have done that. And you know, sometimes friends can go easy on you in a nice way because they want to be kind. I feel like growing up I had a good cop and a bad cop friend.
That's probably awesome.
It was amazing and I can like tell stories about it at some point. But yeah, so my sister-in-law now, she was the bad cop, but like in a good way. Like I needed
in a loving way.
In a loving way. Like, hey, you have to deal with this. And that's so important to have. So you need people in your life that will do that for you.
Yeah.
But it's not always fun.
No, I think like intention really matters.
Yes.
And so if you just have a big group of people around you who are just there to tear you down and make you feel like crap, like that's not a support system. Like people don't always need to be calling you out all the time for every single thing. But like if you trust them, if they're coming from a loving place, they genuinely want to help you. Like I think there's so much power in having people around you.
Definitely. And one last tip that I'll add is just taking care of yourself. We talked about that in our previous self-care episode, but it's such a huge part of building resilience because when you're running on empty, it's a lot harder to bounce back.
Yeah, I've noticed with me, like if I am running on empty, my brain just does not work. So like my ability to solve problems or my ability to be kind or my ability to like see things correctly is wrong. Like it's just impaired. It's not working the right way. And so like all of my problems seem 400% worse like when I'm not taking care of myself. Yeah, I think this was going around TikTok for some reason, but they were basically like, okay, if you hate yourself, you need to like take a shower, like take a full body shower, like where you shave and everything. And if you hate everybody else, you need to do something else. And if you feel like everyone hates you, you need to do this other thing. And it was just like very self-care related. But anytime I'm doing those things because of the right reasons, I'm like, oh, everyone doesn't hate me.
Yeah.
Like they all don't hate me. I was just like hating myself for a minute. And it was hard. I think taking care of ourselves just like gives us the fuel that we need to keep moving forward, even when things get really tough.
Yeah.
Which they do. We've talked about this. So let's talk about the idea of quitting not being an option. Because like if you take something off the table, you just take it off, it's not an option anymore, then like typically you don't gravitate towards that, right?
True.
So you sent me the quote, winners never quit, quitters never win. It's a classic. I love that one. So when you don't see quitting as an actual choice that you have, I think that really changes everything.
Definitely does. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it kind of shifts your brain from like I have a safety net to I'm going to figure this out no matter what. Like that is the only option that I have.
But if we think about those people in our lives or in social media, if they would have quit, they wouldn't be where they're at.
Yeah.
Like I know I talk about Cain a lot.
I was waiting for them to come up.
I was trying not to.
It's because you're looking at me with my Taylor braids.
I know.
And you're
I
like,
told her to put
Cain.
Taylor braids into it. No, but I see them and I see all the hard things that they went through. And if they didn't have resilience and didn't keep going, they wouldn't be where they're at.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was moments that they wanted to give up, but they kept going and now they're where God wanted them. So
yeah,
got to keep trying.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's hard. But I agree with you where it's just like, okay, all of the people that we see, like a very small fraction of them were just launched into whatever it is that they love and it all worked out and it was wonderful and amazing. Like that doesn't just happen to every single person. And so like, I'm sure at 500 points, there was a good quitting point.
Yep.
Right? Like there was a good spot to stop. Nobody would have needed to know.
Yeah.
Like you get hate comments and you want to stop. Yeah. So I agree. Yeah. It's really like, it's very motivational to see people on social media just like doing what they love and like being where they're supposed to be. And you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a moment where you just realized that quitting it's just not on the table for you?
Definitely. There's a few times that I can think of. I have mentioned that 2020 was really hard for me and I was mentally just not doing well. And I wanted to crawl in a hole. I wanted to give up. And at that point, it was our first year of fostering. I could not quit. I couldn't quit. I had to be there. I remember specifically being in church and we had 3 little foster babies with us. And I was on the verge of just like throwing up, crying, passing it. Like it was just so heavy. I felt like the whole world was on top of me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just like run away. It was so hard. But then I looked at those babies and I was like, well, but I can't. Like I have to be here and I have to help and I have to do all of these things. And in that moment, it was like, oh, like I was like, why are we doing this? This is so hard. But it turned out to be a really good thing because it made me not give up.
I really love that. I think when you said like you just felt like the whole world was just like crushing you down. Mm-hmm. I think that's so real. And I think we all feel like that at like some points in our lives where it's just like, oh my gosh, like I cannot bear another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think it's interesting how often like the reason we come out of the hard things or we deal with the hard things is like for kids.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then there's one other time I can think of, if you want me to share a little extra.
Yeah. Always share.
When I was in middle school, I was going through a rough patch. And now looking back, I made the situation way bigger in my head. But you do when you're that young.
Yeah.
And it was a big
deal. We all do that.
It was a big deal. And I was struggling. And I had told my best friend, my sister-in-law, now she wasn't my sister-in-law then, she didn't get married in middle school, don't worry, some things, and she found it to be the best option to tell some adults in my life because I was struggling a lot. And that was hard. That was really scary. And I remember my youth pastor at the time coming in and like sitting down in front of me and just telling me like, hey, I know all of these things that are going on. And we're going to have to sit down with your parents. We're going to have to talk with them about it. And oh my gosh, did I want to die. Like I just wanted to die. I was like, this cannot be happening to me right now. And I remember it was a good 4 or 5 days of not eating, not sleeping, because I was awaiting my parents, like to sit down with my parents and my youth pastor to talk about this. And it was awful. It was so awful. And I talked earlier about good cop, bad cop. So this is where this kind of comes into play. My sister-in-law had to leave. It was a Wednesday evening, and my youth pastor was going to sit down with me and my parents and like go over all of this. And she had to leave. She had school the next day and she had projects to get done. My other friend, though, who's good cop, had stayed with me, which was really nice. But our church had ended. Youth was over. And so I knew what was coming. And I remember specifically walking outside and just thinking, I should just run. Like, I don't think I told anyone that at the time, but I was like, I'm just going to run.
But waiting, like, makes a pit. Like,
oh my gosh. It was like literally 4 days from the time that he told me he knew to telling my parents, but it was awful. It was so miserable. And so I was like, I can't run. I don't know what to do. So I ended up locking myself in a car with my best friend. I locked ourselves in the car. And then a few minutes later, out comes the youth pastor and both my parents to come and get me. In the pit in my stomach, it was so hard. And I know that if it was my other friend, bad cop, that was there, she would have been like, okay, we're getting out of the car. We're going to go inside right now. Which is good. You need that sometimes. But this friend was like, can I unlock the car? I was like, yeah, you can unlock the car. And then we proceeded to have that rough conversation. And then the evening was over and the weight was lifted off because it was over. But just, yeah, I literally wanted to die. It was so, so scary.
I like that in a moment where like you didn't have a lot of choices, like your good cop friend gave you a choice.
She did.
I think that's really powerful.
Because I felt like there was no control.
Yeah.
I had no control, which we've talked about previously, that I like to have control over what I do in situations. And when you're a kid, you can't.
Yeah.
Like,
there's only so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I was an adult in that scenario, I could have been like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Got in the car and left.
Yeah.
But because I was a kid, I could not do that. The only thing I could think of was to run. And I knew that was not going to end well. You know, I could have been a brat and been like, I'm not doing this, and like been really rude, but I didn't do that. But yeah, she gave me that bit of like control. Like, hey, can I unlock the car?
Yeah.
It's like,
I think that's really, like, sometimes we do need our good cop friend.
We do. And it was like, in that moment, that's what I needed.
Yeah.
So
I really love that. Do you feel like that moment helped you to build resilience in your life? And do you feel like going in and having the tough conversation built resilience?
Definitely. Like, it was not easy. I'm going to cry again. I haven't like cried about this in a long time. Growing up in church, we hear all these testimonies of people. And I remember being young and being like, oh, I don't have a testimony, right? This happened and I remember being like, okay, I went through that hard thing and it's over. I have my story to tell.
Yeah.
And then I heard someone say, no, you're going to go through hard things in life. And I remember like stopping and fully panicking and going, things? Plural?
Like multiple?
There's going to be more? And there definitely has been. And there's been things that are way harder than that. But at that time, it was like, this is the hardest thing I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
And it was so scary. But yeah, it definitely helped me to face the next things in my life, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it gave you some tools. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it gave you some tools to face other things. And it
helped me to be able to help others too.
Yeah.
To do that, because I've done that for other kids. You know, like after that, I remember going to church camp and a girl came up to me and told me a story that was similar to mine. And I was like, okay, we need to go talk to someone. And she was like, I don't want to do that. And I was like, I know. Yeah. I know exactly how that feels. So, yeah.
There's another really popular saying where they just say like, the truth will set you free. Yeah. Right. And I think so often that's true. And it usually leads to really tough conversations and tough moments and crying, and
it was not fun.
Like not fun things.
Even describe to you. I'm literally sitting in this office beside my parents and the youth pastor and his wife and my best friend's holding my hand, and the whole time I am hysterically sobbing.
Yeah.
I was like, why do I have to do this? This is awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then like you were able to take that really, really awful, probably kind of embarrassing, like scary moment.
Yeah.
and then turn it into something so powerful.
For sure.
And I think that's where the power and truth comes. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Do you have
I know that's not easy.
It's not.
I know that's not an easy topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can think of where quitting was not an option for you?
I think of a lot of things. Yeah. Again, like I think it's too deep of a well. But to get really real. So I think there was actually a time in my life when I believed quitting was the option, which I don't think I'm like unique in that experience, but I had a really interesting life and I've been through quite a few things. But by the time I was like 14, things were just starting to feel really heavy. Like I felt like I was carrying a lot. I was keeping a lot of secrets. I just had a lot going on. And so when I was 15, I attempted suicide for the first time, like early into being 15. And it didn't work, which like, that's great. But then I, for some reason, decided to try again because things still felt really heavy. And I just felt like my pain could end and that like other people would be happier, you know? And so I ended up overdosing later into being 15. And the worst part was like, I thought that it worked and I was so happy because I just like I took some stuff and I passed out. Like I have no other memories except for my dad coming in the morning and like flipping my lights on and being like, time to go to school. And it was just this like, nobody knew.
Yeah.
Nobody knew, you know? And so it was like, I got up and I went to school and like, just like nobody knew how much I was struggling.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that really hurt the most. So then like, whatever, I did not get my mental health right until I was a grown adult. Okay. Like I battled thoughts of this every single day, but I was like, well, I'm already a failure 2 times. Like we're not going to go for a third, right? Like I don't need that to be something that's sitting on me is that I failed 3 times. But then like I had my son and I had horrible postpartum depression. And like every single day I would just sit there and be like, it would be so easy. Like it would just be so easy to not be here. Like it'd be so easy to not be here. And then there was one day that just like, it just hit me. I was like sitting there staring at him and it was just like, you have to be here. Like you have to be here. There's no other option. And so for me, like that was my moment of like, you know what? Like no more quitter talk. Okay. like quitting is not an option because there are people that need me here and there are good things that I'm supposed to be doing here, you know, but like, I think sometimes it's a quick moment where you're like, oh, I can't quit. And then sometimes it takes 10 years to be like, you know what? Like, I don't want to quit and I want to be here and I want to keep going.
Yeah.
So then like, thank goodness for good medicine because I was able to go and like get some, you know, antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. Yeah. And it was just like, it gave me the moment that I needed before I started feeling really dark and sad again, where it was just like, oh, remember, we're not doing that. Yeah. Like that's what drugs gave me, was like that brief moment where I had my brain and I could just be like, ooh, we talked about this. We're not doing that. Yeah. And I think it gave me all of the power that I needed so that I could realize that I'm made for so much more than just not being here. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for letting me share that.
Beautiful story.
Thank you for letting me share that.
But a hard story. And I think that so many people can relate to that story. Yeah. And it's, so thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that.
Thank you. Sometimes I feel awkward sharing that. I think I've already told you this, where like sometimes I just feel like I talk about it like so passively, where it's just like, like this happened, but yeah, like it's real and it hurts, and I know I'm not alone in that feeling.
Definitely not.
Yeah. If you or somebody that you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide or really difficult depression, please reach out to somebody. We're also linking the suicide hotline below. Please call them. You're not alone. You don't have to just keep struggling. And we just Like, we know it's really hard. So please reach out for help. Don't just struggle alone.
Definitely. It's when you push through the hard stuff that you find out how strong you really are.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's really hard though. Like we all go through really, really hard things.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it can be so sad. And like, I don't know, just to like keep that perspective that you were talking about earlier, where it's like, hey, this is just a moment. This is a tough moment. Like, but it's like the toughest moment you're going to experience in your entire life. Like, that's a really tough place to be.
It is really hard. And I don't want to gloss over the pain that we feel and that you guys feel, because life is dark and it's hard. So I don't want it to seem like we're just glossing over that and like, just look at the positive, because
just be strong.
Sometimes it's hard. And I just want you to know that your life matters and you have value. This is painful, but it's not forever.
Yeah. Well said.
Thanks.
I just really appreciate that. Maybe we should release like a clip of us just saying that. And then you guys can listen to that every single day.
Yeah.
It's like, you matter. Your life has value. And
start repeating that to yourself.
Yeah. Like, you're here for a greater purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I agree. We know today's episode may have brought up some things, but we hope that it just reminded you that it's okay to fall. But falling is not final. It doesn't mean that you failed. So you are allowed to cry. Mm-hmm. We did. You're allowed to rest, but you can't quit, because you are made for so much more.
Mm-hmm. Resilience isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're enjoying LightHearted, or today, Heavy-Hearted, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review, because it helps us to reach more people who just need a little bit more light in their lives. They need to feel like they're not alone. So please give them the tools that they need so they can find us.
And be sure to follow us on our Instagram at LightHeartedPod to stay up to date on all of our episodes, and for you guys to share some of your personal stories with us. If you want to see us get ready to film these episodes, go follow us on our personal TikToks. Those will be linked below. Until next time, stay lighthearted.
This podcast was recorded on Buzzsprout in West Virginia